Oh, today is what? Today is Tuesday. Yeah, I have space from 8 to 10. Okay. So we can have this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so this is fine. We'll move it to morning. So 8 to 10. I hope you not forget. Yeah. Okay. You don't have a pen? Year 4, right? Identify declaration of current state versus desired future organization state. So identify, and then you write declaration of current state versus desired future organization state. And current state. So there are actually three, I'll call them stages. There are actually three stages: identify, engage, and implement. This is the current state that the organization is at, and that's the future, the desired future state where the organization wants to be after bringing in the change. So there's identify, engage, and implement. These are the main stages. So current stage, this is where the organization is at. And then the desired future state is where they want to be. Yeah, so we'll start with phase one, call this phase one, which is identify the change. This is phase one. So here now you have identified the change. So in this stage, someone within the organization, typically a senior executive, starts to initiate to change a current process. So during this phase, someone will initiate to change a current process. So, so this need is then presented to the organization with a general description of the current state of affairs, offset by the high-level vision of the desired future state. So someone is going to identify a change, and then he's going to present the current state that the organization is at it and where they want to be. Okay? So most of the time is the senior executive that starts to initiate the change. So while this seems obvious, identifying a change is an absolute fundamental first step in successful change adoption. So the first step in a successful change adoption is identifying a change. So it is important that the changed condition be described in a common, consistent language. So the change that you want to bring in, you need to describe it in a common, using a common language, using a common, consistent language. You want everybody in the organization to know about the change that is coming. So however, organizations often fail to identify and communicate the need for change in a way that is understood and embraced by people working at all levels of the organization, from the executive to the individual workstation. So if you have people, if you have realized that there's a certain change that you want to bring in the organization, you need to communicate in a language that everyone is going to understand. If you have people in the organization that do not understand English, you should use the language that they will understand. If they understand Chichewa, make sure you use Chichewa for them to understand. If they understand Chitumbuka, make sure you use that language. You want everybody to be on the same page. You don't want, when the change comes, and then they'll be saying, they didn't tell us about this change. Okay? Like, you don't want them to be surprised with the change that you are bringing in. So many leaders do not adequately consider how a proposed change may be received at an intellectual and emotional level by people it will impact the most. So you need to know that the change that you bring in is going to affect everybody differently, right? Others will see change as them losing their jobs, right? Yeah, others will see change as something that is difficult for them to deal with. For example, I will give an example of computers. So imagine someone who has never used a computer, all right? And then the organization is bringing in computers and is telling you, from maybe next month you'll be using computers. People will be afraid. They have never seen a computer, they have never used a computer. Others will even want to quit because of the change, right? So to ensure successful change, organizations should introduce a change effort during the identify stage using the following techniques. So during the identify stage, as change agents, you need to introduce change effort. So using a number of techniques. So you get people's attention, okay? So since change is disturbing and distracting to human beings, it's important to get their attention about the change. Getting people out of their daily routines at an off-site location, if possible, helps them create a shared sense of agency for change and concentrate on the change message, thereby internalizing it more deeply. So they are suggesting you take them out of the location, their usual location, so that when you are explaining to them, they should actually concentrate and understand whatever you're saying. The best way for leaders to make a compelling case for change is to consider the need for change at every level of the organization, not just at top management. The top level need for change is almost always driven by the top line cause. So you need to bring okay, so some of the things that we need to consider is include possible So you need to consider possible frustrations in performing new work. So people will be frustrated. You are bringing the change, people will be frustrated. Okay? Or just thinking about it, you have told them that this is the change that is coming. People are going to be frustrated because they do not know exactly what is coming. Okay? And also you need to consider job definitions. And also understand the end-to-end process. They should know the whole process. Okay? They should understand the processes that are changing. You also need to consider the cultural dynamics. So you consider the cultural dynamics within the organization that may inhibit people from moving to a new changed state. So you need to consider the cultural dynamics as well. So that's it on the first phase, which is identify. The second stage is engage. Yeah. So the second phase is engage. Who are you engaging? You are engaging the people. The people that are going to be using the processes, the people that are going to using the the technology. Okay? The people that the change will affect. So you need to engage them. So once the need for change has been identified and communicated, the next critical step is to engage people in planning for the organization's response to the change. Successive levels of organization must be included in the dialogue to help design an implementation plan. So people within the organization must be allowed the opportunity to intellectual, emotional, and psychological reaction to the desired change. So you are going to have different people in an organization. So these people are going to react differently to the change that you're bringing. So providing the opportunity enables people to become accustomed to the idea of change and to align their thinking in ways that will help both identify potential problem areas and contribute substantively to process improvement. So you need to change, you need to engage the people. You engage the people, you allow the people to react. Different people are going to react differently. Some people will even resist to the change. They will say, they are just saying all these things, that change is not going to happen. Okay? So they are resisting in a way. They feel the organization is just maybe pulling their leg. The change is not going to come. So people will react differently to the change. What I do if because someone is resisting to change, you decide to fire that person because that person is resisting to change. So if you look at most of the changes, people, they resist at first, but once they get used to the idea, they even agree that the idea was very necessary for the organization. So you need to engage the people. So there's an example. Okay, I'll just read it. Consider this example. Okay, you need to form WhatsApp group. Okay, yeah. So admin.
Yeah, I believe that. I don't have your number.
Get it from him.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so consider this example. In a recent process change effort, an external consultant developed a new process. So there's an organization decided to bring in an external consultant to develop a process down to the very detailed level, with little input from the organization and many requirements from executive, and proudly handed over the design, the process design and document to the team responsible for implementing the process. So here, the organization decided to change something. So they got someone from outside to develop a new process for them, with little input from the organization. Okay, and then after he finished designing, he handed over the process design and documentation to the team that is responsible for implementing the new process. The results were not surprising. The user team passively accepted the process, then aggressively refused to implement it. So the team that were supposed to use that process, they accepted the process, but then they refused to implement it. The user team had neither the energy nor the enthusiasm to implement something in which it had no emotional buy-in. In fact, team members told executives in the project postmortem that they actively sabotaged the new process because the consultants developed the process, even though they were the experts. Okay, so here's an example where people were not involved, were not engaged in the whole process design. The organization decided to get someone from outside to design a process for them. So they designed with little input from the organization, and after they finished, they handed over the process design to the team that were supposed to use the process design. The result was that the team, they accepted the design, but they did not use it. When they were asked why, they said they did not use it because they were not involved. Okay, so we are here at on engage. You need to engage. So if you are changing something from the marketing department, you need to engage the people from the marketing department. You need to engage the people that are going to use that. Yes. Wise leaders know that successful change adoption depends on engaging the hearts, mind, as well as the bodies of the people facing the change condition. So if you want to change something, you need to engage the people that you are going to be using. If it's technology, engage the people that are going to use that technology, the machines. So organization leaders need to engage the energy and enthusiasm that comes from people having their own insight, for this is where true commitment to change comes from and where the ownership of results are truly developed. So one technique to encourage people's adoption of a change is to conduct an organization-wide response alignment workshop. So you organize an organization-wide response alignment workshop. When practiced effectively, these sessions allow people to contribute their ideas about how a deliverable should be used within the organization. So once these contributions are aligned through multi-party conversations, an aligned approach for managing and adapting of the change will emerge. So how can you engage the people is by maybe you conduct a workshop where the workshop will allow people to contribute their ideas on how they see that if they want to change maybe the technology, how that change can, you can go about with the change. And when the action has been aligned and individuals within the organization are asked to be involved in response to change, typical human behavior moves to addressing the problem, creating a desired direction to facilitate change. Implementation strategy for responding to the change is then developed at a higher level. The people who will be executing the strategy, as well as the people who will be impacted by the strategy, should be included in the strategy development. So after the workshop, you need to make sure that you come up with an implementation strategy. Okay, so the people that are going to be impacted by the change should also be involved in developing the strategy. So this high-level strategy is important for aligning and clarifying the intent of change, as well as for establishing a direction that the change implementation will take. The strategy needs to be seen by all as a flexible plan so that the organization can adapt to changing conditions once implementation of the strategy is initiated. So after you finish, after you engage the people, then you implement. Okay. Implement the change. So in the implementation phase, change strategies developed during the identify and engage phases are translated into tactics or actions. Okay. So you had plans. Now you are turning those plans into action. For moving forward, the desired future organization state. Here again, people are critical of how processes and technology are created and implemented. They have direct daily experience with these processes and technology, and consequently, they are most knowledgeable about how these components must be customized for the best result. So most organization change failures occur because of insufficient time and attention that was given to the first two phases. So it means you need to pay attention, you need to give a lot of attention to identify and engage phase. Because if this fail, if you cannot implement, technology has failed, Yeah. So you need to put a lot of attention on identify and engage stage. On the other hand, most organizations spend the majority of their time, effort, and attention on the implement phase. But as we've already discussed, without proper alignment of people's disturbances and their response to change conditions, successful adoption rarely occurs. Yeah, so during implementation, employees throughout the organization need to remember why they are working so hard to implement a change. So employees throughout the organization, they need to remember why they are working so hard to implement the change. Therefore, change leaders should continuously remind people using multiple medias that what the change is and why it is important. So people need to be reminded of the change, okay? So you need to make sure you are reminding. You can actually send formal emails or progress celebration. If you have progressed, pen a bag and then you send progress celebration or informal conversations. So what you're doing is you just want to remind people about the change that is happening. So you remind people about what the change is and also why that change is important. So additional organization leaders should ask themselves the following people-related questions to ensure successful implementation. So leaders should ask themselves a number of questions. Number one, does the individual have the ability or desire to work in a new environment? So you look at the people that are working for you, you ask yourself, do these people have the ability or the desire to work in the new environment? Are additional skill sets needed to transition to the new job? For example, the example of computers. So people did not have the computer skills at that time. So organization decided, most of the organization, they sent